6:31. I welcome you all to our select board meeting tonight. Ask you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Couple of housekeeping things. There's a sign-in sheet here. If you are in person, I'd ask you to sign. Make sure you've signed the list. And then we will start out with the approval of the minutes from the select board meeting dated May 7th, 2025.
I'll make that motion to approve those minutes.
Second.
So Arnie made the motion and Kim's the second. Any comments or changes?
Yeah, let me just find the right document here.
Not here.
No, I'm good.
On page 11 of 14, line 15. The name of the town that's underlined is Tunbridge, Tunbridge, Turnbridge. And then on the next page, page 12, Sweat Road is spelled SWETT.
All three times.
Yeah, four times,
4 times.
5 times actually. And then on line 27, Mike Westine, WESTINE. It's the blank line there. I think that's all I have.
I have one, maybe two others. You caught most of the same ones as I did. Page 6, line 39. Empathetical should be, I think, antithetical to the democratic process, not empathetical. Could be wrong about that, but
No, that's probably right.
I don't know what to do with those names.
on page 11. Line 8, I'm not sure exactly what Arnie says here, there was no policy, and because the CCC was a commission, they lacked the authority. I think that means there should be committee. And then Tunbridge you already got. On line 26, just a spelling where it says Arns, which maybe people call him Arns sometimes, but it's Arnie. That's all.
It's close enough.
Okay. Anything else? All right, all of those in favor of the minutes as amended, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Excellent, thank you. Next on the agenda is citizens' comments. And so if anyone has anything they'd like to comment on that is not on the agenda, now is your opportunity to do it. And I'd like to just make sure that everybody recognizes that this is a comment period. There will be no decisions made. It's not our opportunity to engage in any issues. We're just here to listen. So if you'd like to come forward, you sit or stand, use the microphone so it all gets recorded.
Hi, I'm Steve Dock from Chester, and I'm sorry I have to make sure I hit all the points here. I don't know what the majority of the select board was thinking 2 weeks ago when you made a non-decision regarding recommending a candidate for the school board, but I can tell you how it was perceived by many of the people in the community. It was perceived as cowardice, moral cowardice. And in this day and age, every one of our elected representatives needs to stand up for what you know is right, against bullies and against demagoguery. And that made this non-decision even worse. And if some of you were thinking that this non-decision would have lowered the temperature and avoided divisiveness, it did the opposite. This is going to continue to fester and cause trouble for a long time. And I would have a suggestion for, excuse me, how the select board can begin to remedy the problem. And that would be at your new business agenda. You should unanimously recommend Penny Benelli to the school board, as you should have done 2 weeks ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Marilyn?
No.
Marilyn, Mrs. Mahusky, come on up.
Right, thank you. This doesn't actually,
It doesn't amplify.
it just gets it on the record. Okay, thank you.
Identify yourself.
Okay, I will. Thank you. Hi, I'm Marilyn Mahusky. I'm a resident of Chester. Earlier today, you all were sent a letter by a group of concerned citizens. Julie, thank you for acknowledging and for acknowledging that that the board has conferred with town council. But following along the lines of Steve, I just would like to have an opportunity to read the letter that was written and sent to all of you into the record. This is a letter directed to the select board. It's regarding the Green Mountain Unified School District Board of Directors vacancy. Dear Chester Select Board, on May 15, the Green Mountain Unified School District Board of Directors, charged by statute with appointing an eligible person to fill a vacancy on the school board, abrogated their legal responsibility. Following a lengthy deliberative session, the school board exited executive session to announce the matter was quote unquote too political. They determined behind closed doors that a joint meeting of the school board and the select board should occur and a special election be scheduled. We do not know whether the select board has been contacted by the school board or not. What we do know is that the select board no longer has a role in this matter. That's an aside because I learned later that you had in fact been contacted. The statute is clear. After consultation with the select board, this is a quote, the Unified Union School District Board shall appoint an eligible person to fill the vacancy until the voters elect a successor at an annual or special meeting. The statutory language is mandatory. The school board shall appoint. The intent here is that the school board fills the vacancy after consultation with the select board and that that person serves until an annual or special meeting of the school district occurs. The annual school district meeting, as you know, occurs just prior to town meeting day in March. The statute does not authorize a special election. At your last meeting, you chose not to vet either candidate. You advanced both candidates despite being made aware that one of the two candidates has been criminally charged with domestic assault. You advanced both candidates after, should have done this differently, stating you felt confident that the school board was capable of vetting the candidates, which they failed to do. Having passed the baton to the school board, the select board has, at a minimum, fulfilled its statutory role. You no longer have a legal role in this appointment, and we urge you to take no action in response to the Green Mountain Unified School District's request. As members of this community, as voters, we find it disturbing that our elected representatives lack the courage to do what is right, to stand against domestic violence. Domestic violence is not a political issue. It is a legal issue, which is prohibited by law. Sincerely, Marilyn Mahusky, Heather Chase, Edward Grossman, Nick Boak, Robert Need, Ann Henshaw. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hello, guys. My name is Taliesin Filand. I'm a resident of Chester. This actually is fairly new. Bought a property on Depot Street, and shortly after buying it, we had the flood, and unfortunately, my property and several properties in that area were impacted by that flood. There's circumstances and so on, but I have discovered that there's a process or a plan for the road work right there on Depot Street. I don't know if that's the truth or not, but I just would like to speak to that if that's there. As a resident of that street, I would, and several other people, I would like to see maybe some storm drains put on both sides so that water can be mitigated through that area, because it's a pretty saturated area, which is surprising to me. But yeah, I would like to throw that into the comments.
Okay, thank you. And what was your name again, sir?
Taliesin, Taliesin. I own the property. Doors right above you, and then Tom is.
Excuse me, I can't hear you when you're not using the mic. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, so there's Doris who lives right above me, Ken across, Tom from Rhode Island, a couple other houses down below. And you know, yeah, everybody's dealing with water in that area. That's all.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
So.
Hello, good evening. My name is Mitchell Conley. I'm an Andover resident. I'm coming tonight to speak in response to the Class 4 road discussion from the previous meeting, and speak a little bit towards the board creating a Class 4 road policy and also a little bit in response to some of the discussion that happened last week. I first want to talk to the commentary from Jim Goodfellow, who told the story of the 5 Jeeps from New Jersey parked in front of his house. I am a frequent user of Class 4 roads. I have been for many years, and I'm fairly well involved in the 4x4 community. Hearing a story like Jim told to the board broke my heart because it was disrespectful from those people and it was regrettable to say the least. And I'm coming here today to speak to you as a voice for somebody who wants to advocate for Class 4 roads. I understand that as a board, you very frequently hear from landowners and people who are talking poorly about people who use roads by vehicles. And I think it's important that you hear from the other side. Very often, you hear the bad stories. You hear the people who are out there causing trouble in the stereotype of, people going mudding. And I want to say that that's the few who are going to ruin it for the many. For every one story that you hear, there are 100 more of us who are going out and using these roads to enjoy the history of it. You see the old stone walls, you see the homestead foundations, the old bridges. It takes you out into beautiful backcountry that you'd never be able to see otherwise. I've used Class 4 roads all throughout the state of Vermont, including several here in Chester, for a long time. Jim went on last week to say that the group of Jeeps carried up the road and they destroyed the road and it had to be repaired by the Snowmobile Club. I'm not going to say that negligent use is not a problem. There's not people out there causing damage. It happens. But just traveling these old roads by vehicle does not inherently destroy them. And I would actually argue traveling roads is what keeps them open and passable. If you figure a lot of these roads are 200 years old, they started as wagon paths. And the number one damager of roads is Mother Nature. If those roads were not continuously traveled throughout all these years, they would look like some of the legal trails that we have up by my house in Andover that's no longer have a discernible path through the woods. And that's not usable for anybody, for hikers, bicyclists. Nobody can, it's not enjoyable to go out and bushwhack, where the opposite is a road that maybe has some tire ruts on it because people are going out, knocking down the vegetation, moving down trees, and keeping these areas passable for everybody. Hikers, bicyclists, horseback riders, sometimes snowmobiles and ATVs in certain towns, and then also motorcyclists and motor vehicle users like myself. Also, it goes a little bit beyond recreation too, because then you can get emergency vehicles out there. You got to get to a brush fire, here's some roads. You got to get an injured hunter out of the woods, here's some access for you. And then even beyond that, it gives the town opportunity for developments in the future down these roads, where if you fight to close some of them, whether you toss a road up or convert it into a legal trail, really what I see what you're doing there is you're taking rights away from the public and you're restricting use and you're favoring certain use types, which ultimately I don't see as sustainable because people walking these roads aren't going to clear the vegetation as well. There's currently the big fight going on about who has to maintain legal trails. That's a whole thing. It's a lot easier to just drive on them every now and again and keep them legal and passable. Class 4 roads are a huge asset in this state. They are lucrative for local economies. They bring people in from out of the state. They bring tourism, they bring recreation, and they bring people together. It's a great thing to have, and they're a really big asset. And so I would ask you as the board to keep the entirety of the public in mind when talking about class 4 roads and moving into creating your class 4 road policy. There's more of us than just landowners that abut class 4 roads and people who hike and the snowmobile club. We use it too, and I want the voice of us to be heard, not the kid rolling through the center of town with his Jeep covered in mud and big mud tires and a loud exhaust, because that's the one that everyone sees and that's the one everyone talks about. The rest of us try really hard to not be noticed, but until we get up here and speak to you, then it's always the bad notion. A little bit more about the policy that I would love to see. A lot of the information around class 4 roads is very ambiguous. And I understand that's because legally it's 200 years old and it's kind of hard to find sometimes. But I think the best thing that could happen is to present and educate the public, present information to and educate the public in the best way possible. I think spreading information and teaching people what's right and what's wrong, what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do is the best way forward. And then that way, everybody's playing on the same ball field. We're all happy. We can all enjoy the roads and the assets that they bring with them and keep everybody happy.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And if you have comments that you'd like to make relative to our discussion on this, feel free to send an email,
Okay.
much like you did.
Yep. Okay. Want to make sure you got it.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Appreciate it.
Anyone else like to speak on anything before we move on? Okay, next order of business is old business. Julie, you want to take us through the old business?
And, so, town office hours, put in your packet, town office hours have now, changed for the summer months till August. We'll be open Monday through Thursday. We've done this many times in the past. What it does is it gives us Friday as the day to catch up. And also as a day that, employees can, our office staff can make appointments. We're down a couple people at the moment, so if you need to come into the office, if people need to come into the office on Friday, just give Amy a call and we can do that by appointment. So just getting the word out about that. Water meters, just giving you update on the installation of water meters. We are just about half completed. The balance of them will be completed probably by the end of June is the goal. So far, they're working very well. The ones that we have installed, reading was much easier, much simpler. So we're going to be really happy with these meters. So just giving you an update.
I did have a comment. Somebody mentioned that the bill that
Mhm.
they received recently didn't have the same level of information. Is that just?
Yeah, there was it won't be that way going forward. Going forward, it will look the same as it always has in the past. It's just because we're midstream.
Okay, thank you.
Pardon the pun. And then on the urban forestry grant, you'll ride around town and you'll see that all but 2 of those trees have now been planted. There's 2 more to go into the Country Girl Diner lot. Those will go in on Friday. And I will be talking with our volunteer group about a watering schedule to make sure that we have success. But just letting everybody know that the project is just about completed. Also, just letting you know in case you hear about it, I testified for the legislature 2 weeks ago now on the housing bill. Basically, my portion I was asked to speak about was the project-based TIF program. Our housing development is a great candidate for that. Chester would be a great candidate for that project-based TIF. So I did speak before the legislature. I did it remotely. There was good feedback. So we'll see where that bill lands, but that may be a tool for us going forward. And then we put a press release out just a day or 2 ago. Police department is down officers right now for staffing, various issues. Nothing to be concerned about. We are out there. We are looking for officers. We're reevaluating the needs for Chester as we always do. So you will see sheriff's department running around at night. They will be doing our filling our shifts, our backfilling our shifts. During evenings. So if people see the sheriff's department, don't be alarmed. They are filling in for us while we are finding new officers. And I think that that is it. That's it for me.
Questions from the board?
I would like to make a statement regarding old business, if I may. Sure. In regards to the May 7th meeting around the recommendation for filling the school board seat. I'm actually going to read a statement to make sure I don't miss anything, and I'll submit this into the record. There's a lot of emotion around the events regarding this board's choices regarding the open school board seat at our last meeting. I'm compelled to share some facts and explain why I took the position that I did on May 7th. First, the select board is not required to make a candidate recommendation. We did not abdicate any responsibility in not making a recommendation. Second, what's right in my mind is to not pass judgment on anyone based on an allegation. Who here would want their name removed from consideration for service to town government based solely on an allegation made against them? I feel safe in saying that not one of us will want to be on the receiving end of that because it's simply unjust. So we, but really I, had no indication regarding the outcome of Mr. Keller's court case at that time, although I did take time to search for that outcome ahead of the 5-7 meeting and didn't find the result online. Fourth, accusations from the members of the public that this board has shown moral cowardice, quote unquote, lack of courage to do what's right, quote unquote. I've seen the word spineless out there, are uncalled for, are inaccurate, and are seemingly made out of emotional frustration rather than any honest and logical deliberation. I think it takes more moral courage to err on the side of caution in a case where an allegation, no matter how serious, is leveraged in an attempt to bar a person from serving the town. Politics be damned. 6, I know, now that I know the outcome of Mr. Keller's court case, I publicly state for the record that I do not think he should be considered for the vacant school board seat. And I unequivocally endorse Patricia Bonelli for that position. We did not have the information on May 7th, period. I also think that some apologies should become forthcoming to the members of this board over this name calling. If anybody has questions for me, I'd be glad to take those now with the permission of the chair. Barring that, I welcome you to reach out to me either after this meeting or sometime in the near future. And I'm glad to provide you with my cell phone number if you'd like to talk with me about it. Let's be fair, folks.
Thank you, Tim. And I will encourage anyone who would like to talk to Tim to speak with him privately, not at this point. Thank you. Anything else? All right, next is the coin drop for Ruck Up. George Lagasse has requested being able to perform this year's coin drop on August 16th, 2025, with a rain date of August 17th, 2025. And we just need to vote to approve this and sign it. So any questions, comments, concerns from the board? Anybody here want to speak to this? So I'm seeing George here. So it's Route 103 south between Marshall and Mountain View. The second entrance heading south. So it's been there for the last several years.
You need a motion.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve the vendor permit application for Ruck Up.
I'll make that motion.
Arnie's the motion.
Second.
Tim's the second. Any comments, concerns, questions?
Well, he's been doing this for, I don't know how many years, and it's always been successful for him. It's going to good cause, and usually he's here every year, but I think his health might be catching up with him a little bit, so maybe he's not here for this, but it's always worked out well, and they've always been a worthy organization.
Great. All in favor of approving the vendor permit application for Ruck Up, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Next on the agenda is the local emergency operations management plan adoption. And you should have in your packet the adoption form filled out, ready to go. Julie, anything you need to know specifically about this?
Nope, this is the same form you fill out every year. I've updated it with the 3 chiefs, making sure everything is up to date. This is a document that's required to be updated annually in order to obtain FEMA or Vermont Emergency Management funds.
Do we need a motion?
You need a motion to authorize you as chair to sign.
Okay, so we need a motion to authorize the chair of the select board, that would be me, to sign this form. You want to make that motion?
So moved.
Second. Tim and Arnie are the motion second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Next is the fire department reimbursement policy. So you should have received the reimbursement policy in your packet. Julie, can you explain this to us?
And so fire departments have the ability to, there are reimbursables that are allowed to be billed out to insurance companies in their fires, things like foam, things like hazardous material. But you need to have a policy in place in order to be able to do that. So this is a first draft. I don't expect this to be adopted tonight. It follows closely to the line of an ordinance, so we'll follow that same rule, which is we'll set a public hearing. But in order for us to reimburse, we need to have this in place. We basically copied the town of Springfield, toned it down to more of what meets Chester, since Springfield is much bigger, and this is what we're presenting. So I'll take any questions or I'm happy to answer.
Yep, page 2. So it gets down to the primary coverage of the town means the limits of the town, and we serve Andover.
You're right, we do. Where are you at?
I'm at page 2 in
Yeah.
the definitions, and it says, it's the
Primary
definition.
care,
of-
yep. Okay.
Gotcha, right.
Anything else, Peter?
I'm not seeing that either. Where are
Page
you
two,
on?
primary
Way up,
coverage-
way up at the top in definitions. So you're on page 2 in definitions.
primary coverage area.
Oh, okay.
Right,
Oh,
the
look,
definition.
maybe it'd help if I was looking at the right document.
Yeah. Probably.
Yep, you're in the wrong.
I'm in the wrong document.
Anything else you catch, Peter?
No, that was the one because it kind of
Okay.
played back and forth.
Yeah.
And if you change the definition, then it works all the way
Yeah,
through it.
yeah, that's what we'll do.
The question I had was, it seemed to me that this document would allow the fire department of the town to bill homeowners for fires at their houses. Is that true?
It does give the ability to do that. I
Want to do that?
that is a question for you. There are times when negligence, when somebody is told multiple times and they don't. So unpermitted burns, somebody burning a couch in their backyard and they're told to put it out, but they burn it anyways, and next thing you know, you have a brush fire. You're using all your taxpayer resources to deal with that. So this does allow the town to bill for those situations.
It seemed when I was reading it that it was a little bit nebulous relative to what the actual charges might be. Say somebody has a home fire,
Mhm.
you know, their stove or something.
Yeah,
happened, and their
obviously, we're
house
not
burned
gonna
down.
bill, obviously, we're not gonna
Well,
bill, that, right?
But
But it doesn't, you don't feel like it's clear.
Right.
Okay.
The other thing that I was thinking about was, there's not really table of costs, potential costs.
Mhm.
So I know that would be something that would be subject to change, and I'm not sure
Yeah.
it should be built into this particular policy or ordinance, but
Mhm.
it'd be nice to know what those costs might be.
Sure.
And the other question was relative to who's gonna pay the bill. And you said insurance companies. But is that something that we would bill them, or we'd bill the homeowner and the homeowner would turn around and bill their insurance company, or how would that?
I think if there's insurance that would cover, we would bill the homeowner and then they would deal with their insurance company.
Oh,
Are we set up to do things like that as far as all that billing goes and to distinguish between certain size fires and all the details that would go into something like that?
yeah, it said in here that the chief or whoever, would complete whatever assessment needed to be done for that particular.
And that's a common thing that's happening now?
Yes.
Well, I
Yes.
can tell you, I have a neighbor who routinely dumps his ashes, hot ashes out in the front yard, and it catches on fire, and he's halfway to Connecticut, and it's like, really?
Yeah.
And the fire department's been out there 3 or 4 times, and I wish that they would bill him.
Yeah,
No
and-
lesson, but the point is that, this gives us a little bit of a few options for recouping some of the costs to the town, so the taxpayer is not responsible for all of this. But also, we want it to be fair, and we also
Right.
want it to be compassionate, so we're not billing somebody whose house just burned down for.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that was
Yeah,
part of it
and
that I
that's
was
not what-
wondering
yeah.
about how that works and who
Yeah.
makes those decisions.
Well, what I saw, and I admit I didn't read this thoroughly, I skimmed it quickly, it's at the chief's discretion, that's what I think I saw. in
Mhm.
here.
Yes.
So I agree with you, Lee, I'd like to tighten some of that language
Sure.
up a little bit.
Yep.
So that, if it's negligence, that's one thing, or if it's a repeat offender or that sort of thing, then that makes absolute perfect sense to me, but if it's an accidental fire,
Right.
maybe not.
Right. Right. Okay.
Yeah, I did see somewhere, you get 3 strikes and then you're billed.
Mhm. Mhm. Yep.
Anything else on this?
Yeah, there is an appeal period,
Yep.
Right,
right?
There is.
So,
It also seems like there may be an administrative challenge to this, if the chief's going to do it. I don't know all the chief's duties and responsibilities, but it seems like a pretty busy and important job. I don't know where this fits.
Mhm.
So.
Yep.
That's just a question I have.
so does that mean the chief has to, or he can delegate?
The chief can delegate, but he is going to determine what is billed and what is not and the costs. So billing would likely take place through the finance department,
Through the town.
which we
okay.
have a receipt, we
Okay.
have a. receipt.
I misunderstood that, I guess,
Yeah.
or maybe it wasn't clear.
He would delegate. He would delegate out, but it's his discretion to determine what would be billed.
It's a tough one because of all the different variables that you have and all the
Correct.
different things that could be going on. And it seems like it's a judgment call on one person. I would almost be more comfortable with like the board civil authority or something taking over that function when it comes to a disputed claim that
Well, that would
something
be the
came
appeal
along.
process, right?
That
Is
would be an
But that
appeal
would go
process.
just to
That
you,
would go to
right?
me.
Okay,
Yeah, an ordinance would appeal to the town manager.
oh, okay.
Yeah, and to the select board. I don't know how Board of Civil Authority would have any,
Well, they do tax abatement.
that's
so-
tax abatement stuff,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's the same group of people
But
that I would think that would be.
I mean, would that entail a hearing at that point potentially? If somebody, so the appeal went to you and you upheld and the homeowner said, I don't accept that. What are my
Yeah, I think
additional courses? of
that's gonna
action?
come into statutory authorities versus appeal the process of an ordinance. So I'm not gonna sit here and say, yes, we could do civil authority. I don't know if
Okay,
there's
so I guess
statutory authority for
Didn't
that.
really expect an
Process.
answer. It was
But
kind
I
of,
can certainly look into
Okay.
it, sure. Sure.
Well, I guess we're getting a cart before the horse because you don't even have a complete
fair enough.
final draft. So
Right.
at that point,
But I will look into the answer
Yeah,
to that.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else on this? All right, moving right along, fair and impartial policing explanation. We have Chief Williams here who can speak to this. You should have gotten in your packet, the fair and impartial policing policy is adopted by the Chester Police Department. If I'm gonna come on up and.
This is a document I had before. It starts with F and I thought that was for fire.
Speaking of fire, I'm just gonna
seat before it, but sitting in some of these conversations with the chiefs. The reimbursement portion of that fire. Who is that?
Microphone, yeah.
That microphone doesn't.
Can you hear me now?
No, that microphone doesn't amplify in the room.
So you just need to.
I
hold it-
can hear you on Zoom though, well, when you use it.
Okay.
It's not an amplified mic. I don't know what to tell you.
Some,
The,
Maybe
uh,
sit,
what we-
maybe sit like this and face the audience and maybe that'll help.
All right, here we go.
Maybe that'll help.
When we were talking about the reimbursement for the fire policy pursuit, whatever you're doing for the ordinance. A lot of fire departments, the one thing the insurance companies will reimburse, we're not charging people necessarily, they're already paying for a fire service. What we're doing is getting reimbursement for our main pumper has foam, which knocks the fire down, keeps it down and keeps that smoldering from continuing on or having us be there for another 10 hours while we wait till every nook and cranny is out. The foam costs money. The insurance companies will reimburse the foam portion of it. I think that's what the main part of the reimbursement for the foam is. The other part that you were talking about was the negligence part. Somebody sets a fire when they're not supposed to be having a fire, an unpermitted burn that results in 20 firefighters or several agencies going. That's a whole separate issue, but I think I don't want to get everybody confused with you're paying for a service, you're paying for the fire department to be here, and then you're going to pay again. That's not the purpose of that. It was to get the reimbursement with foam alone.
Yeah, we
So
just
that
have
was
to
it.
clarify because
Right. Okay.
got put forward to the whole big
Might
thing.
as well stay right here.
Yep.
So I distributed the fair and impartial policing policy. Is there a specific question on it? Because we follow it to a T.
Yeah, I had a few questions on it, Tom, and mostly it was concerning federal authorities and ICE authority when they come to town. And how does that work? What happens? Do they contact you? Do they not contact you? Are they allowed just to do whatever they please in town? And what happens when you come across something that's happening in town? I'm just trying to get a general idea about the whole process and how it works as far as the local department goes.
Okay, to start with, we do not enforce administrative warrants, which is what the big buzz is about right now. Everybody going and getting people on detainers for not having their green card, not having permission to be here, coming across the border illegally, whatever. We don't enforce that. That's not part of my job. That's a federal job specifically. Unless there's a criminal warrant for them, we do not get involved at all. That is per our policy, and it's also in state statute. And that's one of the few well, I won't say one of the few, there's quite a few that we can't alter or change at all. And that's one of them. We don't alter it. I actually tried to put some wording in there so that it read a little bit more clearly to the officers so that we weren't sitting there trying to analyze every word for word. And I got sent back from the academy. No, you will not. You'll sign it as is. Okay, there we go. So the policy is the policy. The administrative stuff, we don't have anything to do with. I can't tell you the last time I saw an ICE agent in Chester. And it almost takes an act of God to get the feds here to begin with on a criminal case. So, I mean, it has to be something serious. I had 17 FBI agents on Cummings Road for one of our warrants because it happened to have one of the people that they had been trying to find for a year and a half or so. But we take them when we can get them. As far as them notifying us, there's nothing in statute that says they have to notify. It's more of a courtesy. And if they're doing federal stuff that doesn't involve us, or they don't need us, or they don't need us to be aware of it, they're not going to tell us. And there's nothing I can do about that to get them to be polite about it and give us the information. It's working those relationships with the federal agents that are here, whether it's the Marshal Service or ICE or whoever. We've used Homeland Security before for another case in town here. It's building those relationships, and when you build the relationships with the other agencies, they tend to call you and let you know about stuff when they're in your neighborhood. As I said, I haven't seen ICE here. I haven't been called by them. They don't have to call me, and if they did call me again, unless it's a criminal issue, or it's, I would say, let's stick to the criminal issue. An ICE agent is here enforcing the administrative warrant, which I'm not going to get involved in. My guys are not going to get involved in it. Once I get to the point where maybe an assault is happening on one of the federal agents, we've just turned the corner on a criminal act. I do enforce that, and I will not sit back and let an agent get assaulted, just like I wouldn't let a citizen get assaulted. The criminal portion of that's going to be dealt with. As far as whatever they were here for the administrative warrant, that's none of my business, and I'm not going to get involved in it. Legally, per the federal statutes, and I can make copies of it for you. As far as withholding information from the feds, you can't. It's a violation of federal law, so they could technically charge one of us for interfering with their stuff, but we don't have to volunteer it, and we're not supposed to volunteer it. So there's all sorts of, I won't say gray area, but all sorts of areas that you can get pulled into. And really, you got to go back to the policy every time and say, hey, have a seat, have a cup of coffee. I'll be with you in 15 minutes. I got to go read the policy again and make sure that I don't violate my own policy.
So when they operate in town or wherever they would be operating, and you might, maybe you wouldn't be able to answer this. Do they have to have identification on them before they take any action?
No,
They don't, they could be in
No.
street clothes.
they would look
unidentified.
same as you're dressed right now. And
So how do you know that someone doing that is an agent, and say you came across it, and how do you react then?
once they're,
Just assume
once
that?
they're at a property to do whatever they're going to do.
Yeah.
They will have identification on. They will usually have what's called a raid jacket, which is basically just a jacket with large lettering on it. So you can clearly identify that they're, well, you see it on TV all the time. US Marshal, ATF, ICE, they're very clearly distinguishable at that point. They usually have hats on, they have vests on, they have guns, they have all sorts of toys. They're very clearly marked there. If they pull into the Sunoco gas station, like you heard a couple weeks ago, you're not going to know it unless they're wearing something that says ICE on it. I think if you put two and two together, when you see a darked out Suburban with tinted windows and a couple antennas on top and a couple of brawly guys get out of it, or a couple of brawly women, you probably can put the pieces together and say that might be a federal agent, but you're not going to know who it is necessarily unless they have their IDs on them.
But when they take action, that's when they have to be.
They would
fully
have to be identified because
so-
you're talking a lot of liability and safety issues with not identifying yourself. That's why we clearly wear what we wear with police written in big letters to make it very obvious for people, and that they don't fall under any different
Yes,
rules.
and I think it's important to hear that because of all the stories you hear sometimes about things happening unmarked, this, that, what's going on and stuff, but knowing the procedure and how they're supposed to be acting, now whether they always act like that is a whole different thing. I had one other question. When it talks about federal immigration authorities, federal agencies, departments, or employees or contractors thereof, what are examples of like contractors of?
I don't know specifically for them, but I know the federal agencies do hire contractors. So when I worked for the Marshal Service,
Yeah.
the people you see in court, they're wearing, I call it the funny looking tie. It's like a rainbow looking tie. It doesn't match anything else, but always like a blue blazer, tan or gray pants, white shirt. It's always the same look. Those are private companies. So the
Right.
company I worked for was Constellus. Constellus bids for federal contracts in all 50 states for all the Marshal Service duties. And Constellus, when I was up there, they won the bid for the District of Rutland. And they provide the Marshal Service officers for the court security and the ground security for the federal property. So you are a federal agent when you're on the property, and you're a private citizen the minute you step off the property. So they may be hiring contractors like that. And I know we had a couple jobs that were offered to us, even though we were court security in Rutland. We were able to go to, I think it was a military base in Ohio. It was the Army's manufacturing point for their artillery shells. They didn't have enough security for the base, so that they offered it to the contract people for the Marshal Service to go and supplement the people that were out there. So that might be one and the
Yeah.
same.
Thank you.
So would that only, that sounds like that's only on a federal property.
Yes, usually.
So a contractor wouldn't have authority off of a federal.
That I don't know. It all depends on what the contract is that they're signing and what the feds are allowing that contractor to do. 'Cause you have contractors in the military that are over in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they're doing military functions and security over there for bases and other places too. So they have authority over there, even off the base, because they're escorting people back and forth too. So I guess it would all depend on what the
I'm just-
contract is.
What I'm picturing in my head is some of the, whether they're accurate or not, some of the pictures I've seen in the news and news stories is ICE agents apprehending someone on the street where there wasn't clear identification. So I'm wondering if that could be a contractor. That's why I asked.
It could be, or it could be an agent that's not following protocol by putting on some ID. Pretty dangerous thing to do.
Okay, thank you. Interesting question.
Any other questions from the board? Yes, is this pertinent to the select board or to the chief? Would you mind asking?
Thanks. Chief, can you address the issue of, and this is kind of a follow-up to Tim's question regarding identification, but as we've seen in the news, there have been instances where ICE has been wearing masks. And so I'm wondering if that's addressed at all in the policy, or if you're aware of any federal policy that permits federal agents when they're apprehending or detaining someone to be wearing masks so that they're completely covered up. Thank you.
I'm not aware of what the federal agents' policies are. You'd have to go to each department and find out what their policies are. The masks are usually used on raids, and I'm not sure. It depends on what the raid is. I know a lot of like DEA agents, you will not see their face. And that's for safety reasons for the agent. As far as why ICE does it, I don't know. Unless they just don't want to be identified. And I don't think there's anything in any type of law that says they have to be identified at least by their face. I think if they're asked for identification, like us, we would give our name, rank, department if asked, but that's pretty much it. We don't have to answer anything else for people. Yeah, I don't know specifically anything more than that.
Thank you, Chief Williams. Appreciate it. And appreciate your time and your service. Thank you. Next is our flag policy. You should have received in your packet a draft Town of Chester, United States and State of Vermont flag policy or flag display ordinance.
I've since learned that it's a policy.
Okay.
We got clarification on that. So Tim, did you want to talk about, this was kind of started by you. Did you want to speak to it?
Sure,
Or do you-
I'd be happy to. So, I happen to be a veteran. That's not a requirement to want to respect the flag, obviously. I fly a US flag at my home. Proudly and within the guidelines of the federal flag code. Something that really bothers me when I see a flag that's improperly displayed. And this is not the only case, but it happens along Main Street where there are flags being displayed on our poles there, which was, correct me if I'm wrong, which was granted permission by the select board at some point in the past. It's a tough place to fly a flag because they're hard to keep in compliance there. Just on my ride in tonight from the west side of Chester, I counted 6 flags that were fouled either around the standard or caught on pole hardware. So that's not in compliance with the flag code, and it bothers me to see that. So that's what's prompted this. This has been going on for a number of years. I brought it to the select board's attention a number of years ago before I was on the board. And I would just like to see this simple policy adopted. Basically saying that if the flag's going to be flown on or over town property, that it needs to be done within the guidelines of the US flag code. And that if it's not, that flag could be removed. So it's very simple. Happy to have discussion about it. Not looking to make a big deal out of it. I hope it doesn't become controversial because I think anybody who flies a US flag wants to see it done properly. And that's all I'm asking for.
Well, Tim, I appreciate you bringing this to our attention and coming up with something that we can talk about at this point. And I have no problem with the policy. The question that I have, and I think I asked you via email, was actually what are the requirements? Because I searched for both the USC Title IV Chapter 1 and the BSA Title 1, Chapter 11, and I didn't see anything that was super easy to digest. Let me put it that way. And so the question I have is, do we need to be more specific relative to this policy of exactly what it means? Or is this reference close enough? Because honestly, when I looked at it, it's like, yeah, this applies to a flag, but it wasn't clear to me what the requirements were.
Yeah, I probably should have included the link that I responded to your email with. I don't know if you saw that or not.
I
It's
didn't get a chance.
actually a link to, I think it's the American Legion page that outlines the US flag code.
Okay.
So we could attach that.
We could attach that here. I think it's pretty easy to understand. I will say that there were a couple of items in there that seem to have been kind of unofficially let go. One of those is flying the flag at night. It says it has to be illuminated. That's just simply not followed anymore, and it's not a problem for me. The other one is that a flag is supposed to be taken down during inclement weather. Well, now we have flags that are all weather flags. They're made for that. So it's another one that's just kind of been let go.
So the other question I had relative to this was point number 5, compliance/enforcement. And is there a way that we can encourage proper display or proper use of the flags and assist with that? And I'm not saying us as a board or us as a town, but is this an opportunity for somebody like you who's concerned about this to organize a group that would be able to help out with maintaining the flags in the proper way?
I appreciate that question. I'm not looking to volunteer to take care of the flags along Main Street. I take care of my own every day. It gets, when the wind blows hard, it wraps around the standard, I unwrap it. So I would just like to see those issues corrected in a timely fashion. And could a volunteer group do that? Absolutely. I saw when I was coming into town, their flag, hanging some more flags on the west end of Main Street. And I wondered if they drove past the 6 that I saw that were fouled on the way there. Because they could have easily taken care of them, and I'm not sure why that doesn't happen.
Right. And again, I'm not sure, is it the Legion that's doing those flags? So maybe it would be prudent for us to adopt this policy, but also to see how we can help the Legion do the maintenance that this is required by this particular policy. Yeah, because I don't want to come across as, here's what we want, you guys got to do it, or we're going to take your flags down. How can we help is a better approach. And if it means that I have to go down there with my truck and a ladder, once a month and straighten some flags out.
Yeah, I'd be careful setting up a ladder on Main Street.
No,
there might be other ways to do that.
No, I understand that it's an example, but the point is that I obviously wouldn't want to take that on by myself, but if there were a group of 10 people, whatever, to do it.
It doesn't matter to me how it gets done. I don't think I think that's irrelevant. I think it would be great if people teamed up and said, "Oh, that flag's fouled. Let's fix it."
Sure. Yeah. So, again, I don't see any issues with what has been suggested here, and
I think maybe we should consider linking, instead of just the ordinances that are contained in this language, maybe we should include access to or attach, as Julie said, the copy of the kind of this layman's terms of the flag code that I found online.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. And I actually, as you were talking about it, did remind me that I did read that. And that was very helpful. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. Any the other guys have?
Well, I don't have a problem with it, but I think that the Legion certainly has some responsibility to taking care of it. That we should, if they've taken the responsibility that they want to have the flags up, then they should take the responsibility of taking care of the flag.
They should take the point, at least, I think.
I mean, if they want to put them up, it shouldn't be a cost to the town to go and fix the flags that they put up.
No, and I'm not suggesting that the town is the one that goes and fixes that. I just am trying to find a way, if we implement this policy, to be of assistance you know, rather than the stick, I want to have the carrot and how can we help out? Now, I think the stick is important, but I also think that the carrot on the end of the stick might be useful.
One question I had regarding the flags and stuff, we granted the permission, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. So
5 or 6 years
So
ago.
once you grant that permission, it's in perpetuity, and is it wherever they would like to put the flags? Because it has changed over the years too. So that, should there be any definition about how that all works too? Or should it be renewed every year like the snowmobile club does to use the town trails and stuff too? Because I mean, they're branching out, which is fine. They're in the Stone Village. It looks cool out there and stuff, but I don't know if that was part of the original deal or how it works, and is there a time limit on it, or what other the recommendations would be for, you know, controlling it? And it's just the American flag, I assume.
Yeah.
Not the state
US and
flag.
state flag are included in this policy, but I don't see state flags being flown anywhere but on flagpoles, so.
And is there any exception for any other flag that might be brought up that somebody would ask to display it? Would that be considered, or that's not even a part of it?
We typically have not flown flags other than US and state flags on town property, just because of what that can create.
Okay.
You could have flags everywhere.
So to.
And we got a lot of flags everywhere right
I
now.
know, but they're US and state.
Yeah.
I mean,
So to Arnie's first point, does the Legion ask for permission to add
No.
flags or how,
no,
how
no.
should that work?
Yeah, it's a good thought to maybe have that discussion every year. And then if there is an issue the previous year, it's an opportunity to have a discussion about that.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, they just always, in my 20 years, they've just always done it.
You know, I think it was 5 years ago that I came to the board twice, complaining about the condition of the flags. And at one point I asked, you know, what was the resolution that was passed? Is it in the minutes? And I think it was one of those things, there was board consensus. I don't know how it happened, but nobody was able to come up with the language for me. So I don't know.
It's 5 years ago, I think, or at least.
Oh, it was more
I feel
than
like,
that.
but I think the Legion's been doing it.
So 2000,
I've been here 21 years and they've been doing it.
yeah, no, it's,
Nine
For
years.
that
it
long?
was after
Yes, they've
9/11.
Always been hanging flags. I always remember flags.
Yeah, it was after 9/11.
I don't ever remember them coming to the board for permission, though.
But I do remember that.
You do remember them coming? I don't remember.
Wow,
Okay.
I thought
So I
so.
remember having
Alright.
a discussion.
So that's over the course of, I've been 14, yeah, so.
Jeff,
20
hold on.
20 years. I think it's been 20.
On the board.
No,
The flags.
The flag.
Yeah, but I remember it as a board member that they were coming before us.
Okay. Well, I can certainly reach out to them, but you could put something in this policy that requires, permission.
Annual permission.
So who actually owns those poles? You know, that's the other question is they're asking for permission
Yeah.
from the town to put them on the poles, but we don't own the poles. We don't
We
have
don't, it's Green
jurisdiction
Mountain
over
Power.
it. Yeah.
The town right of way, and they have permission from the town to put those poles there.
Mhm.
But I don't know what the legal part.
So those are either Green Mountain Power or VTEL owned poles or
Mhm.
jointly owned poles. So they have their own policies, I'm sure. I think
Yeah.
the reason that the Legion came to the town is because it was flying over town roads.
Well, I don't know, what the next step is at this point. Do we want to vote on this? Do we want to make some changes to it and then bring it up again for the next meeting or?
I think we should invite the Legion in and talk about it before we make a policy.
It's a good idea.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And I think we should attach the document that we talked about.
You know, with all the regulations that they have regarding the flags, there's really no teeth to it all. I mean, they're all suggestions basically and stuff. It seems like through reading through all that and what's going on, and, protocol and how you should do it. But in the end, it's,
It's not a law, it's a code, and
Yeah.
I think it depends upon people wanting to respect our flag.
Yeah.
And fly it properly.
And you are talking town property, so.
Yes, town
that-
property.
to Be
only.
clear, that's town
Yes.
property only.
Okay. I guess we will add this to the next agenda.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, next is new business, next agenda. Thank you, Tim, for bringing that up.
You're welcome.
So I have already scheduled for you guys, obviously we'll put the fire department back on. I'm hoping to have the first look at the use of town property. That's been pretty complex, and then I'm hoping to get Peter's point on the local options tax discussion started, and then of course flags.
Remind me, what's the traffic ordinance?
Oh, traffic ordinance, if we can get it. There's a couple changes about that we need to do, overweight, oversized loads that come through town. We have the ability, it just has to be in our ordinance, but we have the ability to fine if they're not permitted. And there have been many times where we've stopped them, but we can't fine, because we don't have it in our ordinance. The other part of that is, parking on the green. We're gonna add some language about that in the winter months for plowing. Overnight, people are not supposed to have their cars there, and we often have issues. So-
Signs there, but there's no ordinance.
Correct.
Good.
I shouldn't say that out loud. We're gonna put it in our ordinance,
You didn't hear that, Sean.
so we're gonna get that in our ordinance, yeah. And I'm hoping.
They're not following.
and hopefully they'll-
Me too.
Anything else? If not, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Tim is the motion. Second.
Second.
Arnie's the second. All in favor, say saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for attending.
Julie, do you want,
Recording stopped.
you email this to Sue?
What?
My statement that I made?
I can email her to her with the sign in if you want. Sure.
It's actually.
Thank you. Can you also email me Marilyn's letter that she read, please?
Yes, I can. I have that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.